It's our second week of summer school, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the first week of summer school, I got to go on a field trip. It was fun.
I was talking to Karen about that, just the whole, like having the holiday that quick. So that's all good. You're good with having the sort of like the major holiday in that first week.
Well, yes and no. So here's the thing. That's a great question because my wife and I have been talking about that very fact for a while. It doesn't feel like it's the first week because we've been at home since March. So yes and no. Like officially for our summer, we went on our summer vacation the first week, but it was even a fluke. My wife found this at the very last minute. And so it's not something that we planned in May. It was just this was the availability of the cottage that we were able to grab, so we grabbed it. And the sad news is that we decided we were supposed to go on another vacation the third week of July, but we've decided to cancel that due to the COVID circumstances and the nature of that trip. It just would be, we were thinking it might be too stressful to put ourselves in a situation that's supposed to be restful and not have that effect. And it involved the beach, and beaches are, they're being open and closed like back and forth. And we just don't want to go somewhere and find out we can't go to the beach. And we don't want to go somewhere and then go to the beach and be surrounded by a million people who aren't following any of the rules. So we decided to cancel that. Now, I have to say, the people who are running that third week in July trip, we were not able, we got an email from them, I'd say late May, saying, here's what things look like for your vacation. Here are 3 options. Option number 1 is best case scenario, but if that doesn't happen, here are the other 2 options, and here's what you can do if you don't like them. And then, because you have to cancel 30 days in advance if you want most of your money back. We don't hear from them until past that 30-day window.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to my wife, okay, we got a problem. They did not notify us properly of which scenario we were living in 30 days before. So how can we make a decision without getting any information from them? So that was my argument. So my wife and I agreed, okay, let's cancel. And my sister-in-law, who was with us on this week that we were just away now, was also going to be away with us on the third week of July. And we said to her, we're canceling. And she said, okay, email them and tell me what they say. So we emailed them and we said, listen, you've not told us anything since the end of May. I assumed you were going to notify us of our options 30 days out, so then we can make a decision if we want our money back or if we don't want our money back. But I said, you didn't do that. You hit us up after, when it was too late for us to get our money back. So I propose that we cancel this year's trip, but if you could take our deposit and credit it to next summer, I'm like, we're cool. Like, we still want to come to your place. We want to, and we've been there before many years in a row. So it's not like we're new customers. So I said, so what are your thoughts about this? And they respond, they said, no problem. We are happy to carry your deposit over to next year. Get back to us with a date. When do you want to come back? So I said to my sister-in-law, this is how they responded. And so she emailed them saying, we're out, I'm out too. And they're like, no problem. Give us a date for next summer and we'll book it. So we were like, we're nodding our heads. We're thinking, okay, these people, this is good. This is good business, because we don't want to end a relationship with a company or an organization that we've used in the past, for sure.
Right.
And like you and I were talking on the on-ramp, money causes a lot of problems. When money comes into play, I work hard for mine, and people, they should work hard for theirs too. So we were ready to walk away from this losing money. You know, we did not want to get into a situation where we get there, we give them a whole lot more money, and then find out that our vacation really sucks. So we didn't plan to do it the first week of summer holidays, but the way we see it is we've been stuck in our house since March. We were due to get out of the house, and we needed to get out and do something. And we didn't know if our third week of July vacation was going to happen. So we jumped all over this opportunity because with COVID, we did not see civilization for 5 days. I mean, I came into Newmarket. That was my field trip, not the vacation itself. I got to go visit you, and we got to hang. And it was awesome. I appreciate you respecting the whole physical distancing thing because, you know, I've got some issues around that. But you were A+, Clough, A+. You did great. So I appreciate that. But, you know, aside from hanging out with you for half a day, we've not seen civilization. And when we were at that cottage in the middle of nowhere, I mean, people were around us, but not close enough to bug us. It was awesome. And I told you, I'm back. I'm rested. I feel refreshed. I feel like my brain was in the space it needed to just calm down. And nature, I love being in nature, and I'm not surrounded by it close by, so I have to go and find it. And we were basically in the bush, you know, for a week. So that's the thing. I appreciate you and your wife having a conversation about, hey, the Chidiacs, they blew their vacation the first week of summer, and we're like, well, we don't see it that way. We see it as we're stuck in the house from March to September, possibly more. So it was a nice way to break up being locked in the house for us and the kids. And my son, baseball's back on. So we got the notice before we left for our trip that they had scheduled 5 practices. So my boy missed 1 practice because we were away. And we got 1 tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, my son's going to be back with the kids, wearing his gear, practicing, working out, doing whatever they're going to do. And I think he's a little nervous. I'm a little nervous too, because I don't know what it looks like, but we're going to try it out and see what happens. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if you've talked about what you decided to do. You were going to go on a vacation with your family.
We were set up to go to Costa Rica this summer.
But
well, similarly, you know, we actually started to plan this back in December. So this was we got kind of in the thinking mode long before there was any sort of clue, like somehow summer wasn't going to be summer. And quite honestly, as soon as we booked and kind of put down the deposit, that's when everything shut down. So that's when everything just kind of started to close up, and all of a sudden there was the big discussions around who is getting sick and the depth of being sick. So we got the cancellation insurance and basically decided that it would be better for us to put in our cancellation, not knowing whether or not, like, how it would be interpreted, because we pulled out even before there was any formal closings of anything. So we were wondering, we weren't really sure what that would mean as far as us getting our deposit back. We had no clue. We still don't. This is something else that's in process. Like, we haven't heard from, I've contacted the insurance company twice. They've said, well, it's good if you haven't heard anything, because that means that, I guess, in their measure, that they can start to process stuff. Like, that's what it means to them. To me, I said, that doesn't mean that to me. That means that, to me, it means that someone's not doing their job if they can't tell me whether or not they have all the information they need. They didn't really like that response, but that's how I feel. I don't like the whole "don't call us, we'll call you" kind of a mindset. But anyways, it's in process, and we kind of just walked away very kind of open-minded. Like, we didn't We would have loved to have been able to go do this trip, but we just couldn't risk the possibility that we'd be trapped somewhere and not be able to get back, or the costs would just become so prohibitive. Like if we had to stay somewhere, like everything just became more work than we were prepared to do for the holiday, because we already had saved up and we spent a lot on this, knowing that we wanted to be able to kind of go and enjoy, like to kind of arrive and do our holiday. And then we were doing the extra work around it, and we just thought this work won't stop. Like the constant checking the numbers and checking to see, you know, new infectious cases, and then looking to see what the travel advisors were just like, you know what, let's just walk away. We don't need to. So yeah, that's how we played it.
The idea of how this whole thing has come to be is still, I'm still in awe. You know, I'm still in awe of the way this whole thing progressed.
Mhm.
I feel like it's still a bit of a dream. It's weird because, you know, my son said to me, we went to Buffalo for his hockey tournament. It was the big trip this year. And while we were in Buffalo, all this stuff was happening overseas, right? It was like, oh, this is happening over there. It's not going to happen over here. And I remember coming back and my son saying, wait until we tell mom that we found a great hotel to stay at and there's some really cool places to eat. And I remember coming home and my son telling my wife, like, we should go for March break because dad might take us to a hockey game. We should stay overnight. And I remember thinking, even when we got to March break, I was still, and my wife laughs at me for this, but I was still ready to pull the trigger and buy those hockey tickets and book the hotel room, because it was a state, that whole March 13th, you're told you're not coming back to work for 3 weeks. But now you're waiting for like the NHL and other organizations to say, yeah, we're shutting down. This isn't safe. And nobody's done that yet. So in my mind, I was still considering it. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's not happening. And to me, it's just all still, it sits in my mind like it's on pause, like someone just hit pause. So I feel like I can still hit the play button, but the play button's been taken away. So I'm literally in limbo. I can't stop the video and I can't play it. It's just paused. That whole idea is still in my head. It feels fresh. The whole thing feels fresh. So being away this past week, I feel like I found a play button. You know, and I was able to hit it and do all these things that are part of summer holidays for us. So that was cool, you know. And my wife even said when we were finishing up, when we finished up our vacation, we decided to go to a local burger joint that's relatively popular in that area. And as soon as we got there, I kind of already knew this from hanging out with you, but the whole family was reminded of COVID. Like the first thing my son said is, where are the masks? Like, where'd you put the masks, right? And so, you know, then we went back into COVID mode. Like I said, well, we're not all going to go order the food because that's not what we do during this time. You tell me what you want. I'll put my mask on and I'll go and order the food. And it was just interesting going back into COVID mode, because when I was hanging out with you, we didn't get ourselves into a situation where we needed to wear a mask. Like I had my mask, but I felt you and I were distant the whole time. And the places we went into to get our food, there was nobody else really there. And if they were like more than 2 meters away from us. So we just didn't need it. But as soon as I got to the burger joint, man, it was packed. And I have to say, half the people there weren't wearing masks. And that was, I'm not used to that. Like where I live, majority of the people who are out and about are wearing the mask from my observations. And then it was interesting because we had a family conversation as we were eating our lunch. We were like, why do you think people here aren't wearing a mask? Like, why do you think, like, you know, we were a few hours up north. And so then, you know, the kids started asking about the culture of the area we were in, and it was just interesting to hear their theory on why these people, and when I say these people, I don't mean it like Don Cherry style. I just mean in this location, why why are there less people wearing masks than where we come from, where the majority of people seem to be wearing a mask? It was an interesting metric. It was interesting to look at. I can tell you though, I was very impressed with, I took video and I took pictures of the employee working there. I'm telling you right now, as like a dude who's getting older and who one day is going to have stories about COVID for people that are younger than me that don't remember it or didn't really care during it, I am going to remember these businesses that went out of their way to do, to be cautious. So I'm going to say to do the right thing, but I know people don't agree. I think there are some people that believe that they're just, it's part of the hype. They're just doing it because it's part of the hype. I believe they're doing it because it's the right thing. They're told by scientists, you need to stay this far away from people, wear a mask if you can't, yada, yada, yada. If you do these things, you'll slow the spread or stop the spread. This place was legit, 100%. Everything, the way that they were operating, they were doing everything. I saw people like when I got back to the car with the food, my family got out of the car and my wife's like, they just cleaned this picnic table. Like they literally hosed it down and then dried it off. I'm like, okay, this is where we're sitting. The server that came up to me was wearing a mask and he did everything in his power to stay away from me. Literally, like everything about, like I would step closer to him and he'd step back. So this young person was either as vigilant as I was, or was just told by his supervisors, you stay away from people because we don't want people feeling uncomfortable, right? And then even when I entered into the small area where the food was being prepared and put together, packaged, it was amazing. All the precautions, everybody who was behind the counter were either wearing a face shield or a mask or a bandana, like everybody. I was impressed because I feel like they care about their customers, whether they care about the money that their customers come with or they actually care about their customers. They're doing what they can to show me that they don't want that COVID spreading around their place. They don't want it to come back to them and their way of operation. I'm going to remember this. I'm also remembering the very few businesses that we call for takeout and we ask if they'll bring it out to the car. And if they say no, we ask if they'll just even bring it to the door. Just walk it to the door, open your door, put it down, close your door. I'll pick up the food and I'll go. And we've had some businesses tell us, no, we're not doing that. If you want this food, you will come in and you will get it. And I say to them, as a business, you've made your choice, and I respect your choice, but I'm gonna make my choice on where I'm gonna spend my money, where I'm gonna eat, and where I'll tell my friends to go to feel safe about getting their food. So the whole thing's interesting from that perspective. I will remember that as an old dude. I'll remember like there's some stand-up places that did everything they could to make sure their customers were comfortable to purchase food from them and to visit their establishment. But yeah, I was snapped out of COVID for a bunch of days because we were out in the middle of nowhere. And then only when it was that I was going to meet with you did I have to start thinking again about COVID. And even, if we want to drill down, when you and I were talking about, this is a really cool story in terms of not being selfish and having to think around other people's wishes and stuff. So when you and I were going back and forth, me coming to Newmarket for us to hang and to go for some culinary adventure, at one point you said to me, well, you can park at my place and then I'll drive, meaning you'll drive and I'll sit in the back seat. The windows will be open. We'll have masks on. Like, you're like, we can do that. And then I said to my wife, we can do this. And then my wife said, well, we're bubbled with my sister now. So we should really talk to her and see what she thinks about that because she's part of the bubble. And so we want to make sure that everybody in the bubbles is as safe as they can be. And then we rolled my sister-in-law into the conversation. She was really cool about it. But I was like, whoa, I'm about to go and have some fun with my buddy, but I really need to check in with these people in my bubble to make sure that they're comfortable with the decisions I make. So then I decided I drive myself, you drive yourself. If I needed to wear my mask, I would wear my mask. You and I, between the two of us, we sanitized about 100 times, cleaned our hands every chance we got. Even I found it was funny. I didn't say anything at the time. There were a couple of times where I'd see you using hand sanitizer, and it appeared as though it was for no apparent reason. You're just like, we're walking down the street, squirt, and I was doing the same thing. But these are the times we're living in, right? We were doing everything we could to make sure that we weren't going to get ourselves into a problem. When I got to visit Chris's house, like outside, and I got to meet his family, and a couple of times I laughed to myself because your son is a ball of energy, and he would be touring around me, and I was doing everything I could to stay away from him because I could tell he was just doing his thing. I was in his space, right? And he's running in the backyard, climbing this, doing this, and a couple of times I'm like, whoa, I got to take a step back because I'm worried he might come too close. And I don't think it's cool that, like, I'm not worried about your son. I'm worried about what if I shouldn't be close to this kid, right? Anyway, it was just funny because he was just living his life. And that's how kids are. Like, even when I was handing stuff back to my kids in my classroom, some of them, they hopped the barrier. Like, I had a barrier. And they're come in like Dukes of Hazzard. They're hopping over the barrier to get to me. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. The barrier's there for a reason. And thankfully, their parents stepped in and said, stop. And then they would stop. And they're like, do you not see what's at the door? The man has set up an obstacle course to get through the door so that nobody's close to each other. And you literally jumped over the whole thing. Get back over here. So it's interesting, eh? Like, I wonder the long-term effects of this, what that looks like, how it feels. And I've said this to you a number of times. We're getting into routines, right? Like, I'm living a routine life here. We're doing certain things a certain way, and we've done it for more than 30 days. And the habits and the routines that we might not want to keep, well, they're stuck with us, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to break them. So, I mean, I'll let you say what you want about it, and then I want to step away from COVID because I feel like it's taken up too much airtime, and I don't want to give it all this airtime. I want to talk about other stuff. It's a reality that you just can't shake, no matter how much you want to shake it.
I love the whole emerging stories and how everyone kind of figures out their placement in it, because it's not a I think I always knew that this was going to be really complex for people figuring out what it means to be back out in the world again. Even if the news has been showing it in different versions. I think in a lot of ways, unfortunately, news has been showing some of the worst versions of getting back out into the world. I feel like, our partners, our friends to the south of us in the States are just like, it's got to be so confusing, like so much more confusing about what that means to kind of go out in the world than what's playing out up here, only because it seems like everyone's got a totally different idea of what it means to kind of emerge safely. Like, there's just no consistency, right? Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you're sort of commenting on what it means to whether or not we should be spending any more time talking about COVID. I have now kind of other things kind of adjacent to COVID that I'm curious about and kind of not curious about. I don't know. I said this to a buddy the other day. I said, like, I don't want, I'm not, hmm. I think for right now, I've kind of lost interest in talking about what the arriving in school in September is going to look like. Um, I've been sort of last couple of days trying to think about what conversations am I kind of muting. And I don't mean to avoid, I just mean because they're not moving forward right now. And I don't have the time to contribute to kind of move it or to do the research to kind of move it forward. Um, the what is school going to look like when we get back in September? I feel like I don't have much play in. Like, I feel like I don't have, I don't want to, I guess the best way to say is I don't have interest in talking about that. I think a lot of people are still talking about that. Like, it's still a very, people want, they want something to be kind of final and absolute. I get that people are concerned. I get that people are still worried, and because of not trusting systems and maybe not trusting the government, people are not cool with the idea of being back in September. But I feel like I almost, like, I'm looking to have some downtime from those conversations. It's strange. I guess I'm siding with what you're saying. You know, we don't have to talk about it here on the podcast, but I'm also thinking kind of in the general sense, like, I'm losing my steam to talk about that for now. Almost like I need the distance from it to really know what it is that's important about it for me. I don't know. It's kind of strange. And then kind of connected with that, I'm not, I'm looking to see how, I'm still watching to see how different people are kind of, and when I say people, I'll talk specifically my sort of EDU social media, how I'm watching how what people are putting up as, I come from a different angle. I saw somebody tweet out today, like, do not put a COVID lesson plan in your back to school teacher book. And I agree. I totally agree. Like, there's nothing really, I don't think we need to spend time sort of doing that as our on-ramp to getting to know our students. I think a second layer to it as well is that, like I was sort of saying, having to sort of talk about stuff like that anymore, for me, I'm getting kind of fatigued and a little bit bruised by it. Not really wanting to be in that space. I can only imagine how the students might be feeling, how the kids might be feeling to have to talk about this sort of outside their homes. And then somebody else had posted that they've already found stuff like this, like people are selling this stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers. So I guess if you really do want to go and have your COVID lesson plan, welcome back to school in September, you have that. To that end, I did have a colleague that was using, as soon as we left school, as soon as we left back in March, one of their sort of first activities that they did with the students was a COVID activity. And I messaged them and I said, look, like, I'm not sure that, you know, to sort of like flow right out of classroom in school learning and flow right into a lesson plan is the best next step. And they weren't open to that conversation. They really weren't. They weren't open to the conversation around that this is somehow, I don't know, I guess potentially traumatizing for some people, like to have to do research on something and their parents or, you know, somebody in the family potentially could be sick with this. Like, it struck me as a sort of I get the opportunity. I totally get the opportunity that you've got this real life lesson in front of you that you can sort of draw into the classroom experience. But dude, I was just thinking, like, I don't know if that's the best activity to be starting with. But they weren't feeling it. They didn't think so. They kind of argued back on the authenticity of the learning as opposed to the potential harm that could be caused and the stress that students might be put under doing a research project and then going in the bedroom next door and looking at a excuse me, a family member sick. So here's something, if I can pivot on your pivot, double down on your pivot. I'm starting to feel, I think I've been feeling this for a little while. So, and I think it was something you sent me. It was somebody releasing yet another sort of book or resource, something on edtech. And I thought to myself, I didn't really even fully form this idea, but it's kind of down the path of, I don't think we need any more ed tech professional development right now. Like, I don't think we need any more tools moving through our PLN that talk about how to do sketchnoting or how to use Google Slides or how to use Flipgrid in a new and interesting way. And it just kind of struck me that I think my learning networks are just super saturated with that kind of stuff. And I think what struck me, and you and I have talked about this before, is that for the most part, if you have a topic that you want to learn about, I'll say in EDU in general, whatever top equity, assessment evaluation, use of ed tech, maker spaces, coding, like, you don't ever have to go buy a book. You really don't. You do not ever have to go buy necessarily a book to get yourself started. And often I think the books that you would be buying are so much more than you need to get started. And then I kind of think about, okay, so at what point would you need to go buy a resource to learn about stuff? And I'm not convinced that you necessarily need to. I'm still not convinced that anybody's thing that they've made in order to help EDU needs to be bought if they are actively sharing in socials. Like, I think there's enough there. And then you bring it home and you work on it with your team or whoever it is you're sort of working on, and you figure it out. And I've started to see a few people now trying to sort of push out virtual conferences and, you know, the resource that you shared with me. And I thought to myself, I don't see it as necessary. I don't see it as a reasonable offering for us to be talking about tech tools moving into September. Like, I feel like, I know for myself, my head is in a completely different space. Like, I'm not thinking that I want to learn more about any tech tools. And there could be some people that are starting off, but I'm not sure those are the spaces that should be taking up kind of our thinking time. I'll say flat out, my headspace is far more buried in equity right now, and dealing with some of my own confusion and my own biases and the challenge of researching some and reading some, but acting more, sort of making mistakes based on my new thinking, sort of representing and getting out and actually doing things to make spaces better, not just spending time reading about things that other people have done to make spaces better. So my brain, when it sees some sort of a post about, I don't know, a new lesson plan just for lesson plan's sake, or somebody, do you want to learn how to sketchnote? Like, I just think that the space that takes up is kind of obscuring deeper, more, it's giving other issues the ability to hide. That's all I'm kind of thinking. And I've mentioned before that anybody that was doing deep work in ed tech and didn't shift into something that was more socially conscious, for them to start doing it now when we're getting kind of closer. Like, it should have been stuff. This is what we do kudos to, and you mentioned before, Inksmith pivoting to sort of doing the face shields. That was a company that recognized we have to move. I mean, so obviously it's a company. There are people that are working for this company. There are people that, like, the network is so much deeper, but they shifted to a socially conscious product and an approach that showed that they were kind of paying attention to what was going on. Now, whether or not people are going to be, stay with Inksmith as a company after that, who knows? But I would just say they did a smart thing and an aware thing to shift to start to support frontline workers. Like, that was reasonable. I see people now kind of doing it as we come out the other side into the summer, still kind of doing things that are promoting products that are they're the, what do they call it? They call this like, they're entirely tied to the anxiety of returning to school in September. They're not really deepening our thinking about September as a return to school. So I don't need to have anybody, no one can light me up saying, geez, in September we could be doing this whole distance learning again. Are you savvy enough in your Google Classroom to handle that? Are you officially a Zoom teacher? Like, are you in that space? Like, who needs that? Who needs that kind of, like, thoughts right now? I don't know. There's a real jumbled thought, but it occurred to me as I was seeing people starting to post again about edtech, that I started to realize nobody really needs to sort of buy any book or resource about edtech right now, because it's all out there. You could completely find it online if you wanted to. And I've mentioned before you buy any book that is talking about anything about ED, check their timelines, because it could all be there for free. It's likely a large part of it is there for free. Not only is the information there for free, but there's already a community that's talking about it. So, spoiler alert, talk to people that have read it. Where have they been challenged by it? What have they sort of found to be the good bits? That was a ramble. Sorry, man. That didn't come out clean at all, but
it's funny that you say it didn't come out clean. It came out clean to me because you and I have had this conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna come back with at you is, some people will just tell you they don't want to spend the time searching through somebody's feed or jumping into a community and talking about the topic or the idea. They just want to buy the book, read the book, figure things out that way. And I get both sides. I get it. I tend to fall on your side more than the other side, if you will, because you know me when it comes to books, number one. Number two, if I'm gonna pay for a book, I'm feeling like there's gold nuggets there that I want to have placed in one particular place for me to refer to every time I need to refer to it. A book to me is more than just something you read and put away. And maybe that's my problem with books, is that for me, books are just more. Books are resources that I don't want to get rid of, because for whatever reason. But I think it's funny because I did share something with you around an idea, an edtech idea that somebody's floating around out there, and it was an interesting tweet. It got me thinking. So I did watch the little media presentation that was created around the idea, and I did respond to the tweet, and I've not heard back, which is a little bit strange these days. You think someone who's
par for the course? I would say that's par for the course.
Well, I'm a little bit disappointed because
do you think the tweet was there to start a conversation, or was it to promote a product?
Probably the product line first, but you're not going to be selling product if you can't support and discuss, and that's where I come from. If I'm happy to go at this person again in terms of saying, hey, like, what do you think of my thoughts? I've got no problem tweeting that. If you're going to put it on Twitter, whether it's to push your product or not, you're going to put it there and you're not going to respond to people's thoughts or feelings around it, then I think you're missing the mark. And I think then there's a slippery slope for me Because then if I see you as an edgy celeb that doesn't respond, well, that's a problem. It just, I guess, tells me what you're really doing there. But then it's easy to hit mute on that, no problem. And then it's, but here's the thing. I find myself learning in different circles.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the circles I find myself in, I look around and some of these people are in those circles. And so it's like, do I want to cause problems in the sandbox? No. But I'm happy to express my opinion and my experience, which nobody can take away from me. If you're in a circle with me and I communicate with you outside of that circle and you don't communicate back, well, I'm going to have something to say in the circle that I belong to where you will communicate with me. And my position will be, hey, are you doing this to me or do you do this to everybody? Because why in one circle can you be so open and helpful and supportive, but then in another circle, you don't respond to tweets, but you want people to take a look at your stuff. So I took the time to look at your stuff. I took the time to dive deep. And then because of my deep dive, I have some questions. I have some ideas. And now I'm looking for a back and forth. It's about expectation. Everybody's got different expectations. I'm going to wait and see what comes of this. But it is interesting when you start to see overlap in your circles. It's interesting to see. And in this one circle that I belong to recently, there has been some talk, maybe not as focused as it could be, around the whole edgy celeb and the being mean, and how come people aren't coming from things using the perspective of love. And I would argue that people who ask the hard questions, that can come from a place of love. If you're going to tweet stuff out and it doesn't sit well with me around equity, racism, anti-racism, and I say something to you, I ask you questions about your perspective, you can either respond and get your back up and call me mean, or you can respond in a way that acknowledges that you've not considered my perspective, or you have and you're doing this anyway. Like I think it's people need to take a stand, but I think it's hard for people to take a stand when they're trying to sell a product, because once you take a stand, everybody knows
is a stand.
Your product is a stand, but it's not in the same way as actually saying something.
No.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for you to say something, that is another layer to your product.
We talked about this before, how we observe certain, we see how well, I guess part of it is, well, you know what, I'll go personal on this. So my mom figuring out how to use Facebook and posting something on Facebook that I asked her about, and her response saying, no, I wasn't supporting it. I was pointing out that it was ironic. She actually has said that she thinks that in this particular case, it has to do with the idea that it's the whataboutism, like if you're going to sort of say this is bad for Black people, then we have to make sure that we balance that conversation with how bad some things are for white people as well. So it was basically all falling on that whataboutism for white people. And it was just a pass through posting on my mom's feed. And I asked her about it, and she said, no, I was posting up because it's not, because I don't agree with it. And I think that, racism is BS. And I think that, as in, not as in a lie, but it's brutal. She was using that kind of way, like to interpret the, calling something out as BS. And I said to her, you posting it online like that is abstract. Nobody knows what you're thinking, and nobody's going to assume I said it's more likely someone assumes that you're a supporter by sort of just sharing this on your timeline. And she said, that's not what I meant. I said, it doesn't matter what you meant. How it's going to be seen is that you're in support of this type of philosophy and that you like it. And then she said, well, I should pull it down. I said, well, or you leave it there and you take, as you said, you take a stand. You can edit. You can always add something to it. I said, maybe add something to it that I've been asked directly if, if I support this. I don't. My intent was to show the ridiculousness of it. It is ridiculous. I'm disappointed in this person. Like, put the stuff in there that shows your thinking. Now, she's left it up on her timeline. She hasn't done anything about it. But this is what brings to mind with someone that's putting out a product where it's what makes it confusing is it's intentionally confusing and abstract because the product in itself, unless even if let's say it's a book on some equity issue right now, I guess if you're the author and you push that out, then people will assume that you're marketing your product. Now, if that book, digs in deep and has great experiences in it, and you have a lot of primary sourcing in it, and the wisdom is authentic, and it's what's the word? Like, the wisdom is openly offered, then I guess you can just post that up as the author and put it out, and people are going to go, yeah, this is this person's stuff. It's fantastic. But as soon as you're the person that didn't author the book and you're retweeting it, unless there's some shape in there, for people to assume that you're either in alignment or non-alignment with it is abstract. And I've stopped assuming that people are in alignment or not alignment in it. I'm looking to see, specifically with Twitter, are they adding a comment to it? Like, how are they shaping their stand on what they are that they're posting? Because it's become kind of interesting to see how some people, with the way that they've gathered their media, and it could be their collection of podcasts, it could be their, the pictures that or the gifts that they put up, like, you can assume that they're in alignment with your values, that they too are sort of working towards either anti-racist or equitable spaces. But I'm starting to wonder more about that, if these people actually are in alignment, if they actually are that person, because it isn't specific enough. And a good example, whether I want to believe my mom did it intentionally or unintentionally, like whether I believe her plan in posting that thing up, what was presented was unclear. And having that conversation with her, I did say to her, I said, by not putting it up there, it is more likely that the racists in your group, like your friends, the racists in your friends, will think, yeah, good job. I totally think white people need more support when it comes to working through anti-racist work. I said, it's more likely that's what people are going to think. She's like, that's not possible. I'm like, well, do you know who are the racists in your friends groups? Because you could have just triggered them with a big old smile. So I agree with you. Like, being able to firmly establish your stand, right or wrong, I think it allows you to get traction in conversations and growth, really, what it comes down to, growth, because then you are, if you're willing to kind of stand, if you're willing to stand and talk about it, that's a good way to kind of deepen your own wisdom. And I think that's why I told my mom, you don't have to take it down. It's not great that it's up, but I would add something to it that shows your thinking. Them not reaching back when you're sort of asking questions, that makes it a similar situation for me to like my mom, right? Just sort of retweeting or sharing something without extending any of the conversation. And to assume people are sort of assuming to not have the control over what you're projecting about yourself is troublesome to me.
I tend to err on the side of the conversation. I know sometimes it's rare, but I think there are some times where people will tweet me questions or comments and I don't respond. I usually do respond, and I guess sometimes I don't, and there's reasons why. But I think for me, the concern is the trend of just generally not responding.
Mm.
And you and I have also talked about this. Like, there was a guy on Twitter that I was following once, and then I looked more carefully at his Twitter feed one day, and I noticed he had like hundreds of followers, and he was only following one person back. And I remember getting all upset about this. And your response was, it's always measured, eh? Like Clough's response is always, he provides the other side, and that's always good because I need that. But I was like, what does this guy have to offer that he's here pushing stuff out and people are paying attention to what he's pushing, but he doesn't want to see what anybody else is pushing out? And I guess, like, I get that perspective, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I feel like when you're on a platform that is mostly a back and forth platform, at least from my perspective, you're only following one person. Like, it strikes me as strange. That's all.
I go back to, I think my measured on that was just not assuming that I'm anything other than a client. That's all. You know what I mean? Like that's sort of, I think to myself, if someone's not engaging with me in conversation, then I'm probably amongst a collection of people that they just don't engage with or don't respond to. And if I look to see that they're not following me, okay, but I also don't ascribe to the you follow me, I follow you rule. Like I don't use that in my use of Twitter or any socials for that matter. But I will say that if someone asks me a question, that's different. Like if someone engages directly with me, it doesn't matter if we're following or not following. It doesn't necessarily mean I will then follow you afterwards, but I will answer. You know, I will answer the question.
I guess for me, if I go deeper, that individual is not there to build a professional learning community because they're not participating in any of the communities.
No.
So, like, I guess, see, this is the good thing when we talk, the back and forth, it gets me thinking about more of where I'm coming from, why I'm coming from that perspective. I guess I mostly see Twitter, for example, as a place to build a support resource community where I can assist others if they require it, and people can assist me if I require. And I am very appreciative of the network that I have kind of built because there's so many amazing people doing awesome things that are open to talking, that are open to sharing, that are open to, if every time I ask somebody for a hand with this or that, they tell me I need to pay for it, well, that's going to ruin things fast, right? Like if everybody's just out there to make money, we have a problem. Mind you, I did see a tweet this morning where somebody said something, and the response was, if you want me to consult with you about this, there's a fee for that. Like, I'm happy to do the back and forth, but if you're going to dig deeper and you're going to want what I deem to be consultation, well, now we're looking at like a paid model. This is where you need to start paying for my time. And you and I had a great conversation the other day about that. And where do you stop and where do you start? Right? Like, so if I'm going to charge people for my knowledge and experience and skills, where does the free version end and where does the paid version start? How, to me, that's murky, especially when you're an educator and your whole job is to create things and to use things that have already been created and to talk about it with other people. Like, I feel like education, generally speaking, is not a place to make the money, but people find themselves in this, in the education sector looking to make money. So it's sitting in the back of my head. I don't know what to do with it other than I am toying with the idea that if I'm going to provide you with something, how do I decide what support I will charge you for and what support I won't charge you for. And actually, to be honest with you, Chris, for if I can be honest with you for a moment.
You can be honest.
Excellent, thank you. I have to say, I've been thinking lately about, can I monetize some of my love for video editing? You know, can I do something with the passion I have around creating videos, editing videos, manipulating photos and video to serve somebody else's purpose? Can I use that now to make a little bit of money on the side? I've been thinking about that, and I've been wondering, well, if so, how do I go about doing that? How do I go about that? And it's not something that, like, I don't need it. I already have a job. But I wonder if I can use some of the knowledge and skills I've gained over the past few years. I wonder if anybody would be willing to, uh, you know, financially support that in a way that I can provide something for them in exchange for money. It doesn't even have to be money. It could be something else. But when you start getting into the something else, isn't that what we do for each other all the time? There's, like, you have helped me out so much in a variety of different facets, but I believe that I've helped you out with a bunch of stuff in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't exchange money.
Now pause for a sec though, because that, I would say in a lot of ways, that's falling directly under friendship. Like that's the exchange place through friendship. Is this what you're suggesting? Because you and I on the on-ramp talked about, like, any salesperson that's schmoozing up to me through friendship, I take them back to success criteria. Yours and my type of exchange has been far more collaborative. So I would agree. There's my growth, and this is where you kind of go. Maybe I go back to my growth as a human being is how I sort of account for the sort of the wisdom that I've gained by being your friend. But I don't know, is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about like a trade economy where, like, are you comparing teacher sharing to friendship sharing? Are you talking about, let's say, or EDU sharing to friendship sharing, or EDU to trade, as in, I'm going to show you how to do podcasting, you're going to show me how to do assessment and evaluation? So there's kind of like a concrete thing that you're trading back and forth. Or are you talking about completely commodifying, as in, through good relations, the expectation is that you can sort of trade back and forth, and it just might be money for services? Which kind of, like, bucket are you looking at?
So are you telling me that the trade economy is what I'm referring to, but because we're friends, we're just going to give back and forth freely?
Yep.
Like, what would happen if you said to me, I'm having my daughter's turning whatever 14.
Mm-hmm.
Can you come over and just grab some video of her hanging out with the family and her friends in the backyard, maybe get the drone up, and can you do that for me and put something together for me? Are you saying that because we're friends, I'm just going to be like, yeah, sure, let's do that?
No, what I'm saying is, because we're friends, I would ask.
But are you assuming that because we're friends, I would just give? Like, okay, so if our friendship started off from a business model, let's say you came in to buy a car off me, and I thought you were a cool dude, and we started hanging out. Does that now mean that every time you come back in the dealership for something, I'm just going to be like, oh, he's my buddy. Throw his car in the shop, take a look under there, don't charge him anything? Because I think what you're saying, or at least how I'm perceiving it, is because we started off as friends, then this bartering of back and forth, supplying each other with resources, goods, consultation, is always going to be based on that friendship established at the beginning. And because it was established at the beginning, then we're moving in a direction where You could call me 100 times a day and ask me about podcasting or video editing, and I'm just going to tell you anything you want to know based on my experience. Whereas,
or you're straight up going to tell me I don't have. Sorry, I can't. See, that's I think where might the I think about how often in our neighborhood, what often happens is and I mentioned to you, like my relationships with the people in the neighborhood are kind of loose. Like I'm not deep with some of there's a sort of an old crew that has lived here for a while. Their kids have grown up, but I have sort of joined in with part of the barter system. And part of the barter system is often when people are out shoveling their driveways, if someone finishes and someone still has a ways to go, someone will come over and kind of help clear a little bit of it up to whatever point is reasonable. So it's not staying all the way till the job is done. There are some people that are retired, they stay longer. There's some people that have to go get to work, they leave. I've been out with my snowblower and I don't have the time to go and clear a whole person's driveway, but I can see that the berm is built up at the end of the driveway. So I'll go and I'll knock it down with the snowblower and put the snowblower away. So it's kind of, you're giving according to what you're able, but remaining open to the fact that someone could ask you for your services. Now, if you start up a video editing business and you start to declare that, you figure out what your price point is, I would probably still ask for it for free. Especially if it was just consultation. If it was just consultation and there isn't an actual physical product that has to come back and forth, then I would ask for it for free, but I would ask for it for free right up front. I wouldn't leave you to figure that out. I would say to you, may I have some of your time for free? If I felt like I was tripping in on your business model, I would know full well if it was part of your business model, but I would expect that I could ask for it for free. I would put it on you to decide whether or not you're going to give it to me for free. And if you did say, no, I can't do that for free, I would accept that. I would have to accept that because I know that I'm asking something from your business. I would also understand that there wouldn't be, I would also sort of frame this as in I probably would not be, I would probably also come into it as in, may I ask you, like I would ask you for your resources. I wouldn't expect that I should be able to have it for free. So everything about the request would start from what our path was. It's kind of like, I guess, and if it was you and I sort of know you're doing it as a side hustle, like if it became your whole life and I knew like this was the thing that puts kind of food on the table, as in I knew that this was the thing that you're going to entirely focus on, you're going to take the leap. I think just knowing that would change. I may still ask for some free advice, but it would also change in how my demands of what that would be. Like I wouldn't be, you said, getting in touch with you 100 times to sort of soak up all the knowledge. I would realize that you spending time with me, feeling potentially compelled to support me because we're friends, would be at the cost to your family, and it would be at the cost to your business. You can't do that. So this sort of becomes a little bit of I think that you're mixing sort of friendship with barter system, and I think that if there was something, like if I reverse it and there was something that I do or make and you asked me to sort of teach you or show you, maybe something about cooking, I wouldn't be going and buying the food. I'd say you buy the food and sure, I'll come and I'll spend some time with you and I'll show you how to do it. And again, I wouldn't do it if I was making a big dinner on a Friday night and you said, can you come over and do this on a Friday night? I'd be like, no, I'm cooking for my own family, but I have 2 hours on Sunday. And if you push back and say I'm not available Sunday, I'm like, well, I guess that answers how we're going to move forward with this then. Right?
Yeah. You've got me thinking about some things. I like it. That's true. I should really be bugging you more often about cooking questions.
So there's, and to that end, who knows, maybe I will sort of dip more into playing with more video. You've moved further along that curve than I have in like the stuff that you're sort of working on now. I'm still way back in sort of like beginnings as far as like it doesn't. And again, the other thing for me as far as putting video together, that feeding my creative with the video is not it's not a natural space for me. I might capture things that interest me, but as far as as you've mentioned, the editing and the shot list and all that kind of stuff, like I'm not in that space with it.
And the only reason, like it feeds my creative side. You know that. Anybody who's spent enough time talking to me about it knows that it's a fun medium for me to play with. And I sometimes think that I've gotten to a point where maybe I would like to have something for my time and a product at the end, maybe, and there's that's that whole space is an interesting space to me, because I feel like once you enter into that world, client satisfaction is paramount. So if you tell me, hey, Rolland, I want you to put together, what would it cost to put together, a 1 minute and 30-second drone video of my house? And then I tell you, okay, well, I'm thinking I'm going to have to come out to your house and I'm going to check it out. And it's going to take this much time to get the footage and then probably this much time to edit it. It's going to cost you this much. At the end of the day, when I provide the product to you, you might not be satisfied with that product. And I need to be prepared to deal with that. How would I deal with that? What would I say? Right? How that whole space to me is a very interesting space, because for me it's not, here's your video and you've e-transferred me the money and I'm gone. I'm out. Because that's not, I'd like to think that's not part of who I am as a person, right? I just think, and that's maybe I start to think maybe I'm not cut out for that type of thing. And that's why I have a job that doesn't operate that way, because if you say to me, yeah, I don't like this. And I'm like, well, what don't you like about it? Like, there's the music, there's the shots that you told me you've seen before that you like, and I just put all that together for you. That whole space is interesting to me. But like you said, there comes a time, if you ask me to do that for you, and you're like, can you do it on Saturday? And I'm like, no, I'm hanging out with my family on Saturday, or my son has baseball, and then we're going to grandparents' house for dinner. You're like, well, that sucks. Are you kidding me? This is my time. You've asked me to do something for you. I'm happy to help you as a friend, but now you're starting to put like requirements on it. It has to happen by a certain time or on a certain day. And I guess that's the difference between friends and non-friends, because I don't think I want to hang out with people and associate with people who are going to be like that with me.
So this is what I was asking you about when you were thinking about your business. Are you thinking about the business from the point of view of the friend bucket, from the trade bucket, or the completely commodified bucket? And I think holding the clarity there, put it this way, it's part of the reason that this makes this probably challenging. And you go back to, just what you would charge for your mentorship, is the idea of offering something that may be existing entirely in the friend space, phasing it into, because there's no trade space there. Like there's no necessarily the trade space. Like at some point, your depth of understanding, for your if you're talking about video mentorship, it's almost like you're going to jump right over the trade space and go into commodifying it. How do you monetize it? And trying to figure out what your price point is in that. Like, what's the price of your lifetime having spent learning about, videography, 5-6 years, whatever the space is. Because it's not like all you can do is you do comparables. What are other people offering? I remember actually someone asking me, I think it was in my third year teaching, someone asked me to tutor their kid. And they said, what would you charge for tutoring? And I thought about it. I said, I'll do, I think at the time I said something like, I'll do 20 bucks an hour. Does that seem about right? It was a little bit more than, more than what the minimum wage would be for, an 18-year-old. And I thought about my time and where it was placed. And they're like, wow, that's awesome. Everyone's kind of going for 75. But you know what that did? It didn't make me think I should ask for 75. It made me ask, how did they figure out that they needed to charge 75? So I ended up working with the family. They paid me 20 bucks an hour. I did a couple hours after school twice a week. It was for some English and math help. And, I think that it's still, when I see, what people are charging for tutoring, I think it's opportunity charge, not actual. You know what I mean? Like there's some people that charge upwards $100, probably 150 bucks now an hour. Charge a lot of money for tutoring. Actually, I don't know about 150, but I'm guessing it's got to be at least $100 now that people will charge. So, when you move away from, if you were to sort of do the video, like seeking out clients, I think is the neutralizing kind of medicine for this discussion. Because if you're seeking out clients for it, as opposed to going into your learning network or your social network to offer your services, you completely escape the confusion of what do I charge? Because then you go directly for clients, you go to comparables and say, well, other people doing this type of work are charging X. Here's what I would be comfortable doing. You start going back and talking to your learning network or other individuals that have a little bit of the same skill sets as you, and you start offering it to them. I think this is what, if we circle back to where we started, someone right now offering up deeper training in digital tools in advance of September just strikes me like, why are you advertising this to your own professional learning network? You need to be kind of striking out and finding other people that might be that haven't followed you for years, and know that they can go to your blog or your your website and sort of get enough, or your videos that you've been posting. So I'd love to know what you would charge per hour for your what would you charge per hour?
I have no idea. I have
No
no idea.
number, no number pops up in your head right now. Like, I thought everyone always has a quick number.
Really?
Yeah, everyone kind of goes, they'll do a quick number. They kind of do just like this super fast assessment of their life and kind of go, I don't know, I charge 50 bucks an hour, I guess.
I guess it depends. For me, it's more about the job. It's more about how tedious the editing process may be, and the different, like, so if you tell me, you say to me, hey, can you come to my house?
Okay.
My daughter's having a 2-hour birthday party.
Okay.
And you want me to try to capture like the overall feeling of that party, right? With her as the focus. And you want drone shots. And you want high res shots. So it's more than just me pulling out my iPhone. Here, yeah, see, it starts, like if you said, hey, Rolland, my daughter's having a birthday party. You want to come to Newmarket, spend the day. The party's only 2 hours, but get here at this time. We'll have breakfast together. Then there'll be the party. Then for dinner, I'll barbecue up some steaks. You can take a tour in the hot tub. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, Chris. So right away I'm thinking I get to go hang with my buddy. Middle of hanging out with my buddy, I'm just going to use my iPhone, capture footage here, there, and whatever, put it together, and the next morning you've got something waiting in your inbox, and it's a 3-minute video of a 2-hour party where I hope I've captured the essence of the party and some really awesome experiences of your daughter in that, during that time. That's different than bring your cameras and your drone. I don't want you to come over for breakfast and you're not staying for a barbecue after.
Well, see,
Just
and then that's where you divide between, the friendship one and having a client.
but like, okay, you want me to be at your place for 2 hours, and that's the other thing too. If you think you're getting a 1 hour video, that's the whole other thing too. You're not getting a 1 hour video,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna get max 5 minutes because nobody's gonna watch more than that,
Yep.
except one day when your daughter's getting married and you're sitting around thinking about the good old days. You've got a 1 hour video of a birthday party. Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna watch that. You want 5 minutes? That's intense. That's a lot of footage.
Yeah.
I'm guessing like, and I have to drive somewhere. Let's say I'm doing it in town. I think for that package type of thing, I'd say between like $75 and $100. And I would probably err on the side of caution the first times I do it. Like I might just say, give me $50 and I'll do it. Like, and I'll spend all my time and expertise making this 2-3 minute video. And it might be worth more than $50, but because I don't know my layout yet and I don't understand that portion of it, I'm going to err on the side of caution and go from there. And then be open. Now, nobody's listening to this, so nobody's going to hear me say this, but then being open to someone saying, I gave you $50 for this. And then me being open to saying, okay, well, here's $30. I'll just take 20. And then they're like, okay. Like I need to be open to those moments because I feel like this, for me, this wouldn't be a cutthroat thing. It would be, hey, you've seen some of the stuff I've put together and you like it, and you'd like to see something like that around someone you care about, or an experience that you're participating in that you don't want to be doing the camera work, right? Like you don't want to have to pull out your camera every 2 seconds and film this and then think, oh, I need to get this shot. You want to enjoy yourself in the moment. So you're going to get someone like me to kind of grab stuff here and there. And I don't want to operate like any other videographer. No. See, I'm not interested in that. And I'm not interested in showing you my diplomas from college. I have nothing. I have no paperwork. I have products. I shouldn't even call them products. I have artifacts.
You have a portfolio.
I do. It's a digital one, and it's here, there, and everywhere. And you can see the different things I've done. I can tell you why I've done them and the fun what I've learned from them. But it wouldn't be a cutthroat thing. Like if somebody said to me, I don't want to give you that much money, I'm going to call Joe. Call Joe then. Like I don't need to. That's fine. Call Joe. I don't want to get into I would rather be remembered as, hey, a guy I know came over and did some drone footage. He was here for an hour. Then he went home and he did some editing and some music stuff. And I gave him $50 and he gave me this cool artifact of whatever from a drone's perspective. That's kind of more the shtick I'd be going for is, can you throw me a little bit of money for my time and my energy? And I don't want to spend time in a position where people are like nickel and diming me to death, because I'm not nickel and diming you to death. I'm just saying I'd like some money for something that you might like to have. That's all. And I can count the number of times, not that many, where people have said, can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, of course I can, because of the position I'm in or the friendship we have, that then after I could look back and say, I could have charged you for that. I'm going to give you a great example that got me kind of thinking down this road. And I have to be careful how I explain it because I don't want to be giving away identities of people who are in this story. But there was an idea that I would help with creation, a video artifact. And of course, when I was informed that I might be tapped on the shoulder, I was like, yeah, okay, of course I would help. And it does take up my time, right? And it does get in the way of my life. But if somebody needs help and I feel like honored that they would think that my style and what I've created in the past is good enough to do what they are kind of looking for now. Like that makes me feel good that they're like, he can do it. He's got the skills. I've seen his stuff. And then I find out that, so rather than ask me, somebody's being paid to do this. And in my opinion, they're being paid a lot more than what the product was worth in the end, in my opinion. And then I had a back and forth of, I would have taken half of that money and created something at least 3 times better. But then there's the murky waters. There's the, well, yeah, I get that, but we're buddies. But this is kind of a side gig, not your life's work. And then you get all the but. And then I'm like, well, then I'm kind of glad I didn't do it. But I could have done it. Everything I saw in this artifact, right away, my brain was like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I could have put this whole thing together in that similar fashion. And then I even saw some corner cutting stuff, right? I saw, oh, that's a corner cut. That's a corner cut there, in my opinion. Anyway, long story short, it was one of those things where it's like, I could have done that on my iPhone and I would have taken half of what was paid. But it's not my work. Like, that's not what I do every day for a living. It's just here and there, right? Like, and here's the other thing, man, this kills me. I actually feel bad for taking people's money. I just think I should be doing it because I can do it, and this is my service to others. And that's why I thank God I have a job. Because if I didn't have a job, I'd be in big trouble. Like, if you told me, come over, man, my son's having a party, I'd be like, sign me up. I wouldn't even think money. I just think I get to hang with my friend. Of course, there's going to be some benefits. You're going to feed me. We're going to have fun. Of course. Like, that's assumed that, of course, we're going to hang out. We're going to eat. We're going to, but, and I've got some ideas for some of my friends, air quotes. I'd love to do stuff for them just because I think it'd be cool for them to have. And because they're my friend. So maybe I make nothing from any of this. Maybe I have to say, though, that I made videos for my son's hockey team. Mm-hmm. I have to say some of the parents did show their appreciation by giving me little gifts here and there, mm-hmm. That's the thing. Like, I did not make those videos for that purpose. I never expected I would receive anything from anybody. I gave of my time and my energy because I enjoy doing it, and the kids love it, and the parents love it, and I love it too because, hey, like you said, it's part of my portfolio. But I did appreciate the thank you cards and the little gifts here and there for doing it. That's a bonus. I don't do it for that. Even so, what does that say about me? That even getting something in return made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because that was never my intention. So thanks for listening to me rant about this, because I think I started in one place, but I'm not arriving to where I'm not looping right back around to where I started. I just think sometimes I think it'd be nice to make a little bit of money with a skill that I have that I think I'm okay at. I'm still learning. I'm always learning, but I think I can produce things that make people think, like, I've had people say, you got to tell me about all the software you use. And then when I tell them what I'm doing, what I'm using, it's almost like I'm degrading myself. And I'm not even trying to do that. And I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal either. I'm just being truthful. You ask me what I use. This is the tool I use. And I make most of my stuff mobile on my phone. Because I don't want to be locked in this room working on this computer to create a 2-minute video, right? And I'm not, you tell me you want me to record something for an hour, I'd probably say no. I'd be bored out of my mind.
Like to make an hour long feature. Like,
something's happening here for an hour, will you record it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I'm not going to make any money. I'm going to lose a whole hour of my life and more, because then I have to edit stuff in and out. But if you I want, my son's on this baseball team, he's playing on this night, can you get some footage of him? Yeah, because I'm going to spend, every time he comes up to bat, I'm going to have my cameras on And once I get what I need, I can manipulate that shot in at least 5 different ways to make that whatever he does look friggin' amazing. And when you add in effects and music and sounds and all that, all those layers, you can make something normal look really cool. It's a cool artifact. But a baseball game is like 3 hours, right? And when he or she is at bat, like I gotta find the right spot. That's the other thing too. If I get there and I'm behind a fence, well, I'm not gonna charge you all this money for shitty shots. Like that's not cool, right?
Yeah.
You got to find the right vantage point. So there's some things to consider, but that's cool. A 2-minute thing, 2-minute highlight reel. That's cool.
I think, I mean, part of it, it totally makes, I could see you moving into that space.
Dude, even Rolland, come to the baseball game and then after come over for dinner.
I think I had to share with you. I think I told you, like, maybe I didn't. Maybe I told you last week, a couple weeks ago, how my dad used to do wedding. Did I tell you this? My dad was like a wedding DJ.
No.
Oh, I thought I told you this. So it brings to mind, it's funny. So my dad, he was a banker, Bank of Nova Scotia, like over 40 years, right? And way back in the day, so this is, oh, geez, it's gotta be, I was in grade 2, grade 3. How old are you? Grade 3? How old are you?
Grade 3, you're 8.
So damn, that's 40 years ago. So 40 years ago, my dad on weekends was a
DJ?
A wedding DJ. Yeah, he worked for his buddy John Catalano, who also had a day job. He worked at GM, and Catalano, they used to call him Cat. Cat had this side hustle, and on Friday nights and weekends they would do DJing. And I can remember going with my dad to Cat's house, and we would pick up these long, probably 5 foot, at least 4 foot long boxes with 45 records in them. So just the little singles, and you'd have the A side and the B side. And that's what I'd be carrying these big bins. I'm so small, like I could barely carry them, right? Carrying them out to the car. And I'd go with my dad. Yeah, it was probably grade 3, maybe grade 4, somewhere in there. I'd go with my dad and we'd go to whatever hall the actual event was going to take place at. I'd help him set it up. He'd set up the turntable and have to figure out how to plug it in, whether or not we would be setting up speakers or we'd be plugging it into the speaker system. So he'd be wiring stuff up, and then we'd do a sound check. And then we'd drive home, and then we kind of do our Saturday afternoon, and then he'd go back that night. And it was always the same sort of conversation on Sunday morning. Sometimes he'd be getting up a little bit later than the rest of us because he would have been there till after midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I can remember him, and it would always be like, I was like, Dad, how was it? Did they like the music? He's like, yeah, it was great. It was a good gig. I got paid $75 and they fed me. And for him, that was a good gig, that he got his payment and he got his meal. And then it sort of I don't remember when he stopped doing it, but then the conversation shifted into, I wouldn't ask him, how was it? I would ask him, what did you get to eat? Because I started to get this, because the thing is, in where I grew up in Oshawa, a lot of the halls were associated with cultural communities. So he'd be doing his wedding at the Polish hall, or he'd be doing his wedding at the Italian hall, or at the Portuguese hall, or the Korean hall. So then I'd be asking him in the morning, like, what did you get to eat? And he would say, I don't know. I didn't, because just not being familiar with the foods. He goes, I don't really even know what some of it was called. It was sort of like sort of working through, and it'd be kind of talking about a spring roll, something that just didn't happen with any regularity in our household. But that whole, you mentioning the thing about, having some social contract associated with the actual financial contract. That's totally my dad. It just brings back the memories of him talking about that. And I will say, hands down, he used to love doing the Polish hall. the Polish and the Ukrainian halls were right in his sort of zone. Now, I will say that also is partial tribute. He was Irish. My mom is Polish, so I have no doubt that a lot of the foods he was getting at the Polish and the Ukrainian halls was right in step with what my grandmother used to make. So
I love that story because
it's funny.
I get that vibe, and I think that's the vibe I'm looking for. I'm not looking for like a trunk full of equipment and stereotypical like wedding photographer or whatever. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for more, hey, we're going to do this on this day. And we know you do this thing with your phone. That's the other thing too. I feel like it's funny, eh? When people see stuff, they like it. And then when you tell them how you do it, all of a sudden you lose. I feel like I've lost legitimacy from them because they're like, well, then anybody can do it. And it's like, anybody can do it. Like, I'm not saying I have something special. I'm saying I put in some time and I've got a bit of an eye for this stuff now. That's all I'm saying. And I have to say, like, I've done stuff at school, which is, I don't expect payment at school, right? But I have been treated, I've been shown that my work has been appreciated. So just like other people who do stuff around the school, the people show them appreciation for the time they put into coaching and into running clubs and into doing all kinds of things. I feel like I've been treated the same way as those people. I've been treated as, you've provided a great service in this realm, and we're appreciative. So I love that. I love that I've done a job and I've been informed that it was a job well done.
It's funny, just to that end, some of the other things that my dad used to say about it, you're cracking open some memories for me. He mentioned, at least on one occasion when he was talking about it on the Sunday, was that it was really cool because he got to dance with the bride's mother. And I think that's that's that kind of strange add-on that you're doing something that kind of is beyond the money, because that's not something that normally happens at, I think, these wedding receptions, that you're actually dancing with the bride's mother. Like, it just, but he in this particular case, she was just so happy and enjoying the music that he said that he was called, to the point where on one of the occasions he said the music stopped. He said, which is kind of like that doesn't happen, right? But right, because he was on the dance floor with the bride's mother, that mistake was forgiven. So
I think probably you're right. I would seek out more. But this goes back to, money is everything these days, right? Without it, you can't do a lot. But you can get so much more out of an experience than the money, right? Like, if I would rather, like you said, you give me a little bit of money and you feed me, or you put me in a really cool situation that I probably would never be part of because of what I can offer you. That's as good as gold to me too. But I'm not making a living doing this, so it's easier to live like that for me, right? And what I've seen, and maybe I'm rolling in the wrong circles, people don't want to pay for what I'm putting out. So it's either they just don't, they love it when it's free. But if you say to them, well, I'm gonna charge you, or I'd like to be financially compensated for my time and the product that I create at the end, then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not interested. And I'm famous for doing that too. I'll see something that's really cool, and then when I find out what it would cost, I'm like, yeah, no thanks. I'm not willing to do that, to give my money for that. Which brings me right back to, I like doing what I like doing, so I'm going to do it. And if people can benefit from it, that's great. But I'm not just going to start getting myself into artificial situations so that I can produce something for someone, but all the benefits that come with it don't exist, right? So I think I'm back where I started. I think
you are. I was going to say, because then it's sometimes it's probably going to have to be necessary for you to put your business card on the table first.
Well, then
And
I
as soon as that hits the table, then it's like, oh, okay, this is legit. This guy's actually okay. And then you almost have to let them deal with their changing. Like, if you came at me and said, if I said, can you come film? And you came at me and said, okay, so it's going to be, let's say, well, I'll do it $20 an hour plus travel. I would then have to sort of work through my own bias and my own assumptions about what was just going on. And if one of the truths was I wasn't seeing you as a businessman, then that's up to me. That, like, I'm gonna have to work through that stuff, because then it is also on me to not devalue our friendship because you choose to sort of look at this as a business transaction. That's on me to sort of say, dude is like charging me. Wait, I thought he was a buddy. But the challenge, I think, on your end is to still kind of work through those moments. And there would have to be some sort of bravery to kind of go, I want to rep my brand. Like, I want to rep my business here. And what might be some of the, the uncomfortable implications of that. Like, it's almost like it has to happen because you're at some point, I'm guessing you're going to be in a situation where somebody that assumes they don't realize, they don't know the conversation they're in until you tell them. we're not actually in a friend conversation right now. And I get the sense that you didn't sort of realize that by your pause.
You can also tell the friends that start to milk that type of thing too, right? Like, yeah. You can totally tell. And I feel good right now. I don't really have any friends like that at the moment that are leaning on me for everything all the time.
Right.
But it's a bit of a dance too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing me, I wouldn't wait for you to ask me to come do your kid's birthday party. I'd say, hey, do you want me to come to your place and try to put something together? And my angle would be, I get to create, because as you know, I've been itching lately to do that. I get to create, you get to have something, and we get to hang out. And for me, that's the best of all worlds, right? So if you ignore the money, which I guess I do most of the time, if you ignore the money, what are the benefits for me? And the benefits have to be like if I'm coming to record your kid's birthday party, I don't need you putting any kind of expectations on me. But I think you know that about me. I'm like, you might say, hey, try to get this shot that I saw in this video here. Okay. But if I come to your house and you've got a list of like, this is what I want to see. I'm like, no, dude, I'm doing this for fun. And you're getting whatever you get for fun. And it's not going to be garbage. But there's the line. As soon as you step over that line, it's like, whoa, are you really being like that right now? I volunteered to come and create something for you. So you should have no expectation. You should just be happy that I'm willing to do this for you. Now, in exchange, I get to hang out with you like buddies. We get to go chill. Like here, okay, when we hung out the other day, I didn't see you pull out your camera once. We were hanging. But I had my phone and I had my camera. And I remember one time you were inside ordering the food. I'm like, I'm going to get the camera. And then when I was outside, I got a shot of the outside. And then I came in. When you were talking to the man who was making the sandwich, I was recording. Like, you had no expectation. You're just like, Rolland's here. We're going to eat. My thing was, I'm with Chris. I'm going to eat. But I'm also, I like to capture it. So I'm going to. But this was the perfect situation for me. You have no expectation. You haven't even mentioned anything about a video at all. You're just like, you're here, let's go. Get in the car, follow me, we're going to this place. And then even when I was shooting, we're talking about the food. Like, that for me was perfect because I was living my life and you were living your life.
Yeah.
And there wasn't like, oh, did you bring your cameras? You're here in Newmarket. We're going to go to 5 places. Did you bring your cameras?
I suspected you would. I figured you'd be carrying tech with you,
But
mostly because I know it's your hobby. Like it's like you've stepped into the space that you like to chronologize bits of your day, and you like to sort of manipulate, like you said, put a little sound, put a little bit of music. If anything, just having the bits, maybe it'll pop up in another. It's the creative process for you now is not just in the stitching together random pieces, it's in creating the story. So you've gone deeper into trying to sort of like tell a story with your video, not just put together the pieces like montage of stuff. So I accept that that's kind of like it's your thing. It's your thing. And I got no issue being, if I'm going to be in the video, I'm like, okay, fine, capture me, whatever. Because that's the other thing too. There was never a moment where it's like the camera comes out and then all of a sudden it's all of a sudden okay, I got to get in position for it. The camera comes out, you capture something, camera goes away. Camera comes out, capture something.
I even think once I said to you, we were talking, and our talk goes between like professional, unprofessional, family, food. Like there's no, we're just hanging as buddies, right?
I do remember one point you're like, you can talk about the time. Yeah, like there's no audio here. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. We were talking, and you were being yourself, and I just said, don't worry, I'll mute this. Yeah. But you didn't even care. You're just like, hey, what? I think if anything, I felt a vibe from you. Like, why'd you just say that? We're talking about the sandwich. Like you interrupted the sandwich talk, kind of thing. It's those.
I appreciate it because it is a kindness to sort of just, and it's a good way to kind of, if anything, maybe practice for you to realize that, just to sort of to mention things like on my end. Yeah, I mean, I had thoughts like that, but I think it's also important that when you do go, you start creating and using other people in your creative process. I think just mentions like that are important to kind of keep a part of your kind of pedagogy of it, because you never really know. And the moment that you start assuming that everyone's cool with being captured all the time, I think that's where you start to get less authentic material, right? People have to be comfortable. I'm comfortable around you, so I'm comfortable, and I trust that wherever you're going to go with this, it's just like I've seen your work. So wherever you go, I'm like, I'm on for wherever this ride ends. I'm cool.
I appreciate that you didn't. And it's not a bad thing if you had said, hey, you didn't bring any cameras, because I've always got my phone, but you didn't even, you were just like, whatever, because you've seen enough, enough that, and I've done this, twice before you've come to Waterloo, and we've recorded our experience and put it into something, an artifact of our experience.
You walked out of the school and you had the camera, you're already recording as I was walking. Like you came from a blind corner around the corner with the camera already rolling, like you were already hot coming out. I thought that's cool. I mean, that's a good way to get natural footage too.
It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for indulging me with that for a little bit. I think it's important for me to talk it through. I think I got a story for you, but I can't tell you on air. But I think you'll appreciate it. And I think it goes to what we're talking about in terms of maybe people not taking advantage, but like making assumptions that I'm going to operate a certain way with certain things, right? So, yep.
Breakfast cue.
Just he's got a project he has in mind. So for those of you who aren't watching, just listening, my son just came in and asked me if I'd be done, because even though we're hitting like 1 hour and 45 minutes of podcast time, we've spent 30 to 40 minutes prior to the podcast chatting. So my son's like, hey, you've been gone all morning, kind of thing. Well, this is what Saturday mornings look like when I don't have to be anywhere. So
it's true.
But anyway, maybe now is the time to shut it down. But before we go, it's interesting how some people just start to expect certain things from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to kind of be the bad guy and respond with, whoa, hold on here. I love that you expect me to make cool stuff, but there's no contract here. Like, I didn't sign anything saying that I was going to be doing this every time. you pushed here, you pushed there. So I think that's interesting. That's interesting because one thing, I think if you want to look at my dark side, just because I make something around you once doesn't mean I'm going to do it every time. So like, for example, with the hockey team, I believe some people expected me to be video recording every game. And that's not, and I made it clear, no, I'll record when I feel the vibe or something is going to happen that I think is an important moment in this season with these kids. I'll be recording.
Yep.
But there was a time where my son was having some difficulty on the ice, and I thought, okay, I'm putting the camera away so I can watch him play and I can talk to him about it and I can see what's going on. And so for, a handful of games, I didn't record anything. And then when I started recording again, I could hear some of the people saying, oh, I thought you were just done doing it. And I'm like, man, are you serious? I do it when I want to do it. And I stop doing it when I don't want to do it. That's why there's no money exchange. That's why I don't expect anything from you, because I'm going to do it when it comes to me. Right. So, with my closer friends on the team, I just say, I'm not recording anything until Will's doing better. Like, things are smoother for him because he's asking me questions I can't answer him because I'm filming a big picture. Whereas when I put the phone away, I was just watching him. I'm just zoomed in on him, right? And it was just funny. People are like, well, I thought you stopped doing it. I'm like, no, I stopped for a reason. Now I'm starting again for a reason. There's always those people in the population. They just assume because you've done it once or twice, you're just going to do it. And I like to break that mold pretty quick. I'm going to do what I want when I want. So that's kind of the dark side. My wife would say, if she was sitting here right now, she'd have a grin on her face. She's like, there's the side people don't see. I do what I want when I want. And if it benefits you, that's great. But then if you expect to be benefited like that all the time, then we have a problem, because I'm not your servant. I like to serve, but I'm not going to serve you that way every time because you think that's how I roll.
I think this is what I was mentioning to, like, at some point you have to put your business card on the table. And I think that's, but I mean, business card, if we take it more as a metaphor, it's also a declaration of self, right? It's a declaration of agency. It's a framework to understand the nature of a relationship. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to kind of interpret that. It's an artifact of pride. It's a way to sort of advertise. Like, there's a lot going on in that moment. But I think at the heart of it really does come down to the person being clearer, one step clearer than a handshake as to who they are.
And I appreciate that, the metaphor of the business card, because I don't have one. But you're right. That's where you have to establish the hold on. You want this all the time? Boom.
This is the me all the time. It's
right
here on this. This is the me all the time if you want it, right?
But it's going to cost you something, whatever that is. And then if you don't want that, then let me be me, and I will do what I need to do.
Yep.
That works for me, right? So, yeah, that's cool though, because the business card thing is good. I like that in terms of, whoa, hold on, you want more of this, and you expect a certain level of this, then we're entering a different realm, if that's what you're looking for. Because right now it's just me hanging out, chilling, having a good time. If you want something more or different or higher, then that's a different story. That's not the me every day. That's going to be a special me, and you're going to have to do something for that.
Mm-hmm.
What did you draw today, Chris? A strawberry, one lone strawberry.
We didn't get to that part. I was at, like, sort of, it was left in mind from our on ramp. Maybe we'll just leave it as a mystery.
Well, I like that we had our conversation, but
Maybe
your brain led you to draw that. So I'm glad that your head could be in two different spaces without actually having to explain that space.
How about we'll leave it as the code word? How about that? It's this super special code word from summer school. So if anybody hits me up with the word strawberry, I'll share the story. So that's how maybe we can do this as the hidden. This is our version of the Patreon. So the extra content is when you hit us up with the code word, and then we'll share the story that it's associated with.
So then we have to drop a shout out to Shref.
Oh, Shref.
Brad Schreffler is like, the dude is a glutton for punishment, eh? Still listening to the podcast and jumping in. We appreciate it, Shref. Thanks for the tweet.
Yeah, he hit us up with the code words from a few weeks back. So
yes, sir.
Just to let us know that he's out there. That's awesome.
I love it.
How about that? Strawberry. Strawberry is the code word, and we'll see if anybody hits us. What's the story behind the strawberry?
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, dude, have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
We'll be in touch.
For sure, man.
Peace.